Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, my precious pack, and welcome back once more to VEGA Conflict. We're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the decimation, the prizes, as well as the targets for this video to get everybody ready for it in 4 hours. Let's start off with the targets. What am I going to be hitting? Things like that. Okay. Last chance to pick up USA ships, so we'll talk about that when we get to the prize recommendations. Let's see here. Infected Outpost, Quarantined Fortress. I'm currently doing builds with Celestial Optics 3, so I actually need to be hitting the pockets. So I can devote one of my Altarian fleets to that. So, going down through the list, we have Nighthawk Wings 3, Nightingale Wing 3, Nightingale Drone 3, Tick Cannon 4, Binary Torpedo 4, Phase Charge Relay 3, Celestial Optics 3, Terra Cannon 3, Phase Drain Buffer 3, Triadic Cannon, the Triadic Vulcan 4, Thermonic Filament 3, Node Armor 3. That's another one I need to start farming. I need to start farming Node Armor because my Segfault's getting up to the point where I need to start giving it the specialized damage resistance through its armor, just like the Behemoth. So, that will be another one to keep an eye on. Atrophy Rooter 1. And this is the most insane grind of them all, but they have reduced the number of targets you have to hit, so there's that going for it. Anthracite Munitions 1. I actually have a few of them, and I actually have one on my Segfault already, so I don't need that. Anyone else that needs it, they know where to find it. It's in the Pharmacon glitch. Hammer Missile 3 fragments. I actually need to start farming those. They drop from the Umbra Hellfire, alright. Nighthawk Drone 3 fragments from the Umbra Onslaught. Don't need any of them yet. But I'm sure I could work them into a carrier or something. Glance Cannon 4 fragments from the Subaltarian. Altern. The Prime Vulcan 4 fragments from the Aventail. The Elite Cavalier Cutter fragments from the Armati. Mark 5 box, Mark 4, alright, so here's one of the new ones. Pharmacon Mainframe, co-op target. It drops 15 to 25 Mark 6 Omega fragments. So it's a co-op target that drops the fragments for the new ship. That actually looks like the only one, because the rest of it from the point down it's all boxes, it's all the crafting boxes and things like that. Siege Fleet. Score additional points through base defense by triggering a siege fleet. So base defense as usual. Well, there is no level 100 players. There's a few that are up towards level 90, but I have yet to actually see level 90. Level 80, level 85, alright. Okay, what's the new stuff? Ambush, Fleet Formation for 5 million points. Okay, well, I did mention that I'd bring this up, and this is a great time to do so. Why is a fleet formation more expensive than a ship? Seriously. It could have been 1 million points and it would have been readily acceptable. But to get all 3 of them, and I do see a use in them, and I'll show them off in just a minute. And Blight Siphon Resistor. You can literally get all 12 of these for nowhere near, well, for around only half the cost. These provide more freaking usability than the Rampart unless you're going to maintain the formation. Yeah. A bit stuffy today, it seems. But let's go ahead and let's go take a look at the price list through the actual price store. So, Ambush consists of 1 ship out front, 5 behind, so I could assume most people would put the carrier, flagship here, supporting ships here, and a decoy here. Flexwing. 3 out front, 3 in the back. That actually looks like a fighter from another game. I can't even remember what the name of the fighter is. Nope, wait, it's not a fighter. I know exactly what it's from. It's from Star Wars. It's the clone fighter. I really can't remember its name. That's what that shape reminds me of. But again, carrying the back, instead of decoys, you actually have tanks out front and 2 support ships. Okay. Rampart. 2 in front, 3 in the middle, 1 in the back. So carrier's going to be in the back unless you change it up so you have a support ship at the back and the carrier's in the middle, and then in which case you have 2 tanks or 2 support ships on the front and 2 damage dealers to the sides. It actually leaves a large amount of space open around the base. Well, around the ships. Huh. That could be good for all around fleet for dealing with farm reconnaissance. They circle, just set them up to more or less sit around the main ship and don't move too much. You know, set the ships out so that they're all looking outwards, so that there's no blind spot for the NPC targets to hit you from. And then strafe to one of the sides, or turn the carrier to the side you want to go in, and have every other ship strafe along with the carrier all in the same group. Okay. US ships are back, so again you can pick up the pre-built ships for 5 million a pop. Yep. So it's going to cost another 90 million to pick all 6 of them up. Next up, the Dissipators, which I've been waiting for them to drop again. The Wings, which I've actually been waiting to drop so I can get a few more mixed ones in my base. Epsilon Echo Cannon, yeah, I'll pass, because just 2 standard Epsilon cannons far surpass you. Xenosci, I never did use it, and the lack of mid-range means that you have to cover that gap, and most of the weapons I use now in the base already do their fairly good job of keeping stuff at long range. Exophase Field. Since it has no repair time, I can actually recommend it for the various types, but we do need newer shields for bases to be able to block plasma and blight damage. Another Exophase style shield that could block all the damage types would be a nice addition to bases, just allow them to tank a little bit more. Most definitely give them more energy, because the effective value would be about 6,000 hit points, because a 50% resistance increase is typically applied over the base value, so 50% of 4,000 is only 2,000, so again 6,000. Most ships reach up towards, for battleships, 5,500 damage per second. Yep. That damage per second right there is that of a maxed out Daemon. Yeah. So, stronger shields in the future. Recommended, naturally. With stronger damage resistance as well. Okay, then we have the ships. The crafting boxes. Drones, screened shells. Armor, resistors. Then we get down to the prize boxes. Tokens, and resources. Okay. Well, most of the targets you fight don't do Xeno damage, so unless you're building them up for PvP specifically against targets that do Xeno damage, or building them specifically for NPC targets, yeah, this could have been Plasma. All of it could have been Plasma. But we haven't seen Xeno stuff in a little while, so it's at least welcome. I'll pick up what I want later. So, prize recommendations and target recommendations. Well, the current meta of the game is explosive and plasma damage, unless you're doing the base, in which case then it would be blight, plasma, and explosive, and naturally you can't have 3 disruptors on a module at the same time. So, my recommendation would be to use explosive dissipators and plasma dissipators. 1 and 1 on a single combat module. Ooh. There's something I completely missed. There is no module armor here. We have weapons and shielding, but we have no armor. Okay. As for the wings, well, I maxed out hangar bay actually can hold 2 wings, so you can actually... Ugh. So you can actually mix the damage types fairly easily. And one thing I want to see now, actually, I do not remember if we actually have a Fury Wing. I would think we would. Okay. I guess not. Well, that's one thing I could recommend trying to add to a prize store at some point, a Fury Wing, because they're... Unless it's in the Alien Decimation, I don't think it would be there. Well, the Alien Strike, let's see. Okay, there's the Fury Wing, so it's just... It's old tech, I keep forgetting. Fury was introduced with Paladin, it wasn't the Altarian specific, the Altarians just adapted use for it by taking it. So this is where you get the Fury Wing. I may actually take a few of them and farm a few while I wait. But back to the prize store. Recommendations are going to be Ambush, Flex Wing, and Rampart due to the ability of having a flexible wing or flexible formation to start with if the fight requires a flexible fleet. If not, you can just use one of the standard 3 that we use, which are... Oh yeah, I forgot, they're not actually in here because these are all the earnable ones. Okay, but the standard 3 are actually these 3 up here, the box, wedge, and line formation. And I typically use the box or the wedge, or in some cases, the iron blockade. And it's all about the fleet formation. How do you want the fleet to start, and how do you want them to fight for the first little bit of a fight before you actually break them up? Do you go engage targets as they scramble around, or maintain your fleet formation? Either way. So, new fleet formation additions, interesting, more than well welcomed. Pre-built ships are back, but the price it's a bit steep as always. But for most of the targets, we can just use elite ships or something and just smash out the high-level targets for 1,000,000 points at a time. We'll have first set of whatever we want in the first 5 hits. The dissipators are... We don't see enough of them in the stores, and one thing I can recommend is keep the damage-specific resistors, the Alien, the Blight, and the Plasma, to the higher level stores, because that's where you start to see the higher level damage types and bases, but move the energy dissipators, kinetic, and explosive, all to something like the Alien Strikes to keep going, because that would be more attuned to lower levels. Actually, no. The Alien Dissipator would also have to be included, because alien damage begins with the Xenodivation. So, that's just something to think about for the development team. Going down with the prizes, Nightingale Wing 2, Nighthawk Wing 2. No. No. The 2 that I actually use aren't even in this store. I'm pretty sure they're in the Alien Strike. Exophase Field 3. Yes, I would take it because it's better than the Metaphase, and since it doesn't take since they no longer add repair time to the base modules, it's not that bad. Though it does lack overall defense. Okay, ship recommendations. Well, there's very little here for the factions, actually. But the primary focus of this one is going to be all the Pharmacon. Ugh. It's getting harder to talk. Okay. First recommendation from the ships will be the Trojan. Second will be the Zeus. Third will be... Actually, no. Yeah, third will be the Daemon. Because the Daemon requires more skill to fly than the Zeus and the Trojan. Next up will be the Gargoyle Carrier and the Manticore, followed by the Inhibitor and the Omega. I'm not recommending the Cavalier Cutter because it's just a ship that I typically don't use, because most fights, people either don't use stasis against them so that their overdrive doesn't activate and they just die extremely quickly, Or you're fighting Pharmacon, and you just can't catch them, so having the additional speed, even with being stasis, isn't all that important. Now, on to the next one. Something I find funny in this store is the fact that they included so many Umbra boxes, but they don't actually have the ships up here. So I can understand them having the Gargoyle and the Manticore because they're there, but I don't see the reason for the Medusa, the Ogre, the Wraith, or the Phoenix, especially the Phoenix. The Zeus is there, the Cavalier, these ones all make sense. Every single one of the Pharmacon ones makes sense. Okay, Nighthawk drones. So now we're starting to get to ship weapons and gear. Nighthawk drones are going to be used for Umbral Carrier and Umbral Dreadnought, naturally having a few slots for each. So I would pick up 8 of them. 8 level 2s, because that would be about the maximum you'd need for a carrier if you decide to use drones instead of actual weapons for some insane reason. Or mix them. But 2 drones for the carrier. Well, 2 drones for the Dreadnought, 6 for the carrier. You can also mix the fittings, so you'd have 3 or 4 carriers from that amount. Blight Screen 2 through 3, so it'd go 1, 3, 2 as per my usual. Xeno Shell 1, 3, 2 as the usual. Again, as I said before, I can't really recommend the Xeno resistance stuff because a lot of times you're not going to be fighting Altarian versus Altarian, you're going to be using Pharmacon versus Altarian, Pharmacon versus Umbra. So it'd make more sense to go after stuff for blight resistance for the Pharmacon and things like that. Prize boxes, what do we got? Same as always, yep. I can recommend them because they're a good way for the lower levels to be able to advance. And the fact that they give out a Paladin Carrier, Guardian Cruiser, and Enforcer Battleship, along with credit items, which are extremely useful for fitting ships quickly and preparing them for a fight. And then we have the silver prize boxes with the Xeno ships and the Dominion Carrier, along with Rupture Beams and Beam Capacitor, which all makes sense. And you're going to need a few of the Annihilator battleships when I actually start doing the farming tutorials for these guys. And you're going to want level 3 fittings, stuff like that. So again, pick up the silver prize boxes before you actually pick up the gold, because for lower levels, if you can take the targets out, this will be useful for you, because when I start doing the next set of tutorials, we're going to be using Xeno Division ships to farm up into the Axis tier. And we're going to be going through the Axis sector, which is the hub for deep space, to be able to farm them. And we're going to be going blueprint to blueprint. And then we'll worry about mark upgrades in another tutorial set. Then after that, the final thing is going to be the time tokens. Naturally, I could recommend every single one of the time tokens, because you're always going to be doing something involving the time tokens. Building ships, refitting ships, and even crafting some of the stuff required for them, such as mark upgrades and things like that. Just chop the build time down. Resources, well, resources are everybody's thing to talk about whenever they need them. So they're here if you need them, only if you need them. And that looks like the entire prize store covered. Recommended targets are going to be the same ones I'm going to be hitting, so the ones that are dropping Celestial Optics and Node Armor. Celestial Optics for certain energy weapon builds that I'm playtesting right now, and I need the level 3 because I don't have any, so that's a necessary item. And Node Armor to be able to start building up the higher end Pharmacon fleets that I actually need to be able to build the specific damage resistant armors. Finally done. Hope that helped everybody. If naturally, you should have different recommendations and things like that. So go ahead and share your recommendations. I shared a few thoughts on where some prizes should be over where they're actually at, currently in Decimation, things like that. And it's things that should be considered. When you watch these videos, just make sure you think of where certain items should be compared to where they're at due to the difference in power or the value of the item. In this case, disruptors could be moved to Alien Strike, leaving the two specific damage resistors, the Plight and Plasma, in the higher end defense, because that's where you're going to be getting the higher end damage to your base and stuff from. But that's it, everybody. Share your recommendations below. Go ahead and share your thoughts below. If you have any questions, ask below in the comment section. And as always, everybody, be safe out in the void, and I will see you in the next video.